Hi there, this is Phil Simborg for the USBGF with another short analysis of an interesting play. And one of the reasons that I brought in help today was because I got this play wrong and I wasn't sure why I got it wrong. It was sent to me by one of my students. And when I have a problem that I don't particularly understand myself, I call on one of my teaching partners for the Backgammon Learning Center, which are Stick, John O'Hagan, David Rockwell, and Perry. And Perry Gartner is my personal guru and teacher for many years, and I thought he could really help us with this play. So take a look at this 6-2 and see how you would play it. It's a normal match score or an unlimited game, and I'll give you a hint. White should come in with the 2 onto the 23 point. The question is, where does he play the 6? Give it a little bit of thought, and then let's see what's right and see why it's right, and we'll have Perry help us with this. All right, so have you decided on your 6? Perry, what's right and why?
Okay. Well, before I get into what's right, let me just get rid. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Before I get into what's right, let's look at. Let me put the checker in, and let's look at the position from that perspective. So I'm going to put this checker in. And now we have a 6 to play. So the first thing I want to do is look at all my candidate plays, right? I can come out here, I can come down here, or I can come to the bar. Those are the 3 candidate plays.
And some people might think about 8-2, but you don't even look at that because it's just silly to leave that direct shot and put a checker on the 2 point. So let's just rule that out right away.
Exactly. Now, what's going to happen here is we're going to have to leave another blot somewhere. Either we're going to have to come out and leave a blot in the outfield, we're going to have to come down and leave a blot. So the question is, where do we want to? Where is the blot going to do us the most good? If we come out to the bar, we have an opportunity, and we don't get hit, we have an opportunity to make the point. So I brought up something very interesting and very important. What's going to happen on the opponent's next roll, and the way we should look at this position, is the most common variation, meaning that when the opponent doesn't hit you, that's going to be some of the time, and the balance of those times he's going to hit you. So let's see if we can look at those 2 happenings with each roll that we're considering. The first roll that I'm going to look at my TV just went on. The first roll that I'm going to look at, the first candidate play is to come out. So let's take him out here and take a look here. So looking out here, without counting the numbers, let's just see quickly, without counting the numbers, what's going to happen when you do get hit. Or how many? Let's put it another way. What are the chances of getting hit here without getting into an exact count? You see that your opponent's got 5s, 1s, and 6s to hit here, so you're going to get hit lots of time. If you don't get hit, you can make this with a 4 or 5, but the 5 is duplicated. You want to make this as well. So this looks like it's going to get hit an awful lot of times. Now, how about the other 2 plays? Phil, can you tell me when this comes down, when this checker comes down versus coming out, this play versus this play. Can you tell me one or the other which gets hit more or less, since that's what we're talking about?
Well, if you bring the one out, you get hit with 1, 4, 2, 4, 3, 4, 4, 4. That's 7 times. And if you bring the checker down, you get hit with 1, 4, 2, 4, 3, 4, and 4, 4, which is 7 times. Plus, you get hit with a 2, 5.
Well, you're gonna get with a hit with a 2, 5 anyway. And a faster way of doing it, Phil, is just to see, since the 4s are duplicated, when you come down or come out, all the 4s are duplicated.
Mm-hmm.
So a fast way to do it over the board is just look at what the extra numbers are that hit you either way. So this way, you get hit with a 1, 6 extra, right?
Yeah, 1, 6 and 2, 5.
No, the 5 hits anyway. The 5's duplicated.
I see. Yes, I got
So there's only a 1, 6 extra, but there is one other number extra the other way. Coming back here, coming out here. Can you tell me what that is?
Double 2?
Exactly. So what's the difference?
It's about the same.
It's about, there's one shot out of 36 different. You get hit one more time with a 1, 6 here than the other way. Mm-hmm. Now, that's important to know. Why? Because we want to look at the ending position when you get hit and when you don't get hit in this position versus the other way.
That's a great point, because my gut reaction was playing the 16 is much safer, and it really isn't.
It really isn't. In fact, we're going to find out that you get gammon less when you make this play, and you might think you get gammon more because you're leaving you have a 5th blot. But it's not the case, because when you do get hit, you've got 3 points to come in on. When you make a point, you're going to get gammon less. The other thing you're doing that's important is you're unstacking. So what I want to do is just talk about the importance of coming down versus coming out. But first, I want you to tell me what's going to happen when you don't get hit, and in this sequence. What are you going to do when you don't get hit? Most of the time, it'll come in with a 3. Almost everything else hits.
Yeah, so he comes in with a 2, 1 or a double 1 or a it's a lot of 3s that don't hit.
Right.
Or a 3, 6, yeah.
3, 6, or
I see your point. That checker on the 10 point is totally disconnected from your 8 point. There's no communication. And you're it's going to be hard to clean that lot up, and it's hard to do anything useful with that checker.
Right. And what's your game plan? Your game plan is probably you want to leave here. You want to get away. But you also want to make this point. You want to make an inner point. This makes it, because you're disconnected here, you're duplicating some of your good numbers. It makes it difficult to make this point. And when he comes in with a 3, having this point is very, very good. So you're likely to come here with a 5, and you're going to leave him a number that unstacks from his 13. So this doesn't look very good when you don't get hit. And let's say you don't get hit with this play. What's your game plan here?
Oh, yeah. It's beautiful. You're going to make your bar point. You're going to make your 4 point. You've got a lot of nice play on that side of the board. They're all in communication. Right.
Now, one of the things that I'll mention for viewers that for a few of your viewers that are not familiar with it, it's extremely important to make an outfield point. An outfield point in your outfield. Generally, even when your opponent is on his 24 point, but here it's even more imperative. You need a landing point. So why make an outfield point very quickly? It's a landing point where checkers can land and stay safe for a while. It's what I call a safe haven. It's a staging area for attacking later, for making points later, for coming in later and just coming into your inner board. So,
and it also blocks him. I mean, this is a very close race.
You have it. The other thing is, as he moves forward, priming him is much more difficult. When he's back here and you don't have a point, you can come down and leave a blot out here. But here it's more difficult, and priming him is more difficult. So you can block him with any 5 or 6 or ace. So that right off the bat you have 27 numbers. There are actually more, because some numbers, combination of numbers, make this point, like a 3-2, for example. You'd make this point rather than this point, because here you don't have to pay much attention to this side of the board, because he doesn't really have much of a threat over here. He's got really one builder here and these 2 guys here. So the game is on this side of the board, and I was going to say, Phil, that I can hardly think of a bad number here. Every number seems to play constructively. Mm-hmm. The worst number I thought of was double 4s. That brings 2 down and leaves 2 blots. But everything else plays beautifully. Every 5 or 6, even if you only make one of these, it's going to be constructive for you. If you make the 6, the 5s is somewhat duplicated on his side. And if you make the 5, the 8 point, you roll a 5 and make the 8 point. Every 4 of his isn't that pleasant, and he may not roll it anyway. So
okay, so everything you've shown us so far screams of playing 13-7 if he isn't going to hit you. And
right.
Most of the time, aren't you going to get hit?
No, you only get hit about half the time, Phil. That's the interesting part of this position.
So what about the half the time that you get hit? How am I supposed to know that the half the time I get hit, this isn't worse, sir?
Well, let's look at it. Let's look at it. So let's look at this play. When you get hit here, you're going to get hit on the bar point, or you're going to get hit on the 8 point on this play, right? Mm-hmm. So when you get hit on the bar point, what are your returns? You have 1s and 6s to return, double 3s, double 2s. So you have a ton of returns. Whereas if you get hit, let's just take it back and look at the difference out here. If you get hit over here, what have you done? You've unstacked a phenomenal stack that he's got here. This 9 point is wonderful for him because it's a builder for the bar, for the 5, for the 3, and just making it is effective for him. So hitting you here isn't nearly as desirable for him as hitting you here. Here, it's a wonderful thing for him. Yeah. Here, you've got a ton of returns. Some of them on the inside. Even when you're down here, let's say you're down here, and he hits you with a 3-5. So you're on a bar here now. Okay. So now you have 5s to hit him in here, over here, and you have little numbers, 2, 3s, and 4s to hit him here.
Plus a whole lot of numbers that make a nice anchor on his side of the board.
And what about if you just roll a 6 when you come in?
Yeah.
Now you've got the start of a prime. Mm-hmm. So comparing that, let's put this back on the bar and put this checker back here and put this one back here. So when we compare the unstacking play and putting this checker into play, even when you get hit, there's a huge difference for you. This is a terrible place to get hit. If you're going to get hit, this is better for you because of your returns. And, of course, when you don't get hit, you've got the 6s fives, and aces to make any of these. Let me just show you. When you don't get hit, the 6 5s and aces, even when he comes in, what we said before, look at all the numbers you have to make this point when he comes in.
Yeah.
So that's it.
All right, let's put it back to the original.
Let's look at it.
Oh, go ahead.
We can look at the numbers.
All right, well, put it back to the original position. I rolled this out, so we don't have to look at the numbers. It's after you roll it out, it's almost exactly a 5% error to play 22-16 or 24-18. Those two rolls are just about tied. So it's significantly different. But in this original position, if I can just summarize in my own words really quickly, most people, including my gut reaction, was not to create a 5th blot. And that's the wrong thinking here, because whether you have 4 blots or 5 blots, you're either going to get hit or not. The question is, if you don't get hit, 5 blots is fine. You've got lots of communication and lots of good things you can do. And if you do get hit, where these particular 5 blots are, you've got more return shots and you have a better chance to make an interboard point. There's a couple of other principles that you mentioned here, which I think are great. One of them is kind of new to me. I mean, I've only been playing for 55 years, so it's about time I learned a new concept. Well, you mentioned that one of the advantages of playing 13-7 is you're unstacking the 13 point, and I know that. And in fact, I just recently posted on USBGF a hint by Roberti saying that when you have a stacked point, unstacking it should be one of the thoughts that you should always keep in your mind on just about every play, how to unstack that stacked point. So that works really well to play 13-7. But what the thought that hadn't occurred to me is that when you play out to the 18 point or the 16 point, you're helping him unstack a tremendously stacked point, his 13 point. And that's a concept that I haven't really thought about that much, how we want to avoid letting him use his stacked checkers. Now, I know in the early game, for example, when your opponent rolls something where he has a whole bunch of checkers on a 6 and 8 point, that you don't split because you don't want to help him unstack. So I wasn't able to take it to the next level and use that same thinking, that same theory, to middle game situations like this, where it really, really is a factor. And the other thing that I love about the right play here and what you had to say was you're keeping communication on both sides of the board. And on both sides of the board, your checkers are always within 6 pips of each other, which means they can make points and be used for return hits. And when you do play 22-16, that checker is isolated. It's not within 6 pips of your checkers that you have left on his side of the board, and it's not within 6 pips of the checkers on the other side of the board. So you lose communication with the play. I think this play is a wonderful example of how much more logic and thinking and reasoning and odds that go into a simple checker play in the middle of the game. And if you did make only a 5% error here, you might not think you're making too big an error, but do that 2 or 3 or 4 times and you're giving away 20% of your winning chances. And by the way, an error like this could easily be 10 or 11%, depending on where the cube is in the score of the game. Anything further to add, Perry, on this one?
I would just add one other thing, that there are 4 numbers out of 36 that dance for him. And so that's like 11% of the time. That's also not insignificant, because when you come down here, and he dances, look at the position that you have. You don't quite have a cube yet, but the swing of being out here versus down here is something like a gain of 20 points, 0.20 gain difference on those 11 numbers.
Gotcha.
11% of the time.
So instead of just looking at the play and seeing the glass is half empty and seeing all the bad things that could happen to you when you bring that checker down, you really have to look at the good things as well, and then look at the other plays and the bad and the good, and do, well, what Perry refers to as a most common variation. And I loved the way you put it when we started this. Either you're going to get hit or not. And those are the only 2 things you look at. And it really doesn't matter all the other stuff that's sort of in between. There's not many things that are in between. There's nothing in between, in fact. You're either going to get hit or not. And it's not that hard to analyze where you're going to be if you get hit and where you're going to be when you don't get hit and which play is better. So
And the other thing is the importance, the long-term strategic importance of making a point in your outer board. That's the other part of this position that's really important.
With him having 2 checkers back, you still should be thinking about playing a priming game. You're not giving up on a priming game. If he had 1 checker back, you'd be much more thinking about either a hitting or a racing game. But because he's got 2 back, you do still have a priming opportunity here. Playing from 13 to 7 gives you a terrific priming game. Even if you get hit back, you still could easily come back in and hit again and still develop a nice prime on your side of the board. Perry, I want to thank you very much for your time and effort here and putting this together. And now that you've retired from the presidency of the USBGF, I expect you to put in a lot more time helping me with analyzing positions so I can do a better job with my videos, and I look forward to your helping me on many more plays in the future. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Phil. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay, great.